Good evening. Welcome to AWANI Tonight's special coverage on the U.S. presidential election. I'm Fana Sheh. Now, former President Donald Trump returns to the White House after winning the presidential race, defeating Kamala Harris. As of now, the Republican is projected to have won 279 Electoral College votes, crossing the minimum 270 threshold to be elected president. He is the second former president in history to win back the White House after losing a re-election bid in over 100 years. At 78, Trump is now the same age as Joe Biden was when the latter became the oldest president in U.S. history to be inaugurated. He is the first twice impeached president ever to win back the White House. He is also the first president ever to take office while fending off criminal charges in multiple active federal and state cases. Trump's path to the White House was assured after he flipped the battleground states of Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Analysts have pointed out the former president's improved performance when compared to his 2020 run across broad swaths of the country. Speaking at the Palm Beach County Convention Center in Florida, Donald Trump addresses a roaring crowd of supporters, calling it the greatest political movement of all time.
We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. We want to have borders, we want to have security, we want to have things be good, safe, we want great education, we want a strong and powerful military, and ideally we don't have to use it. You know, we had no wars. 4 years we had no wars.
Meanwhile, Republicans have won control of the U.S. Senate, retaking the chamber for the first time in 4 years. With several races still to be declared, Republicans now have 52 seats in the chamber and will assume control under a chosen Republican leader.
The win was secured after picking up 2 Democratic seats in West Virginia and Ohio, and winning an unexpectedly close race in Nebraska. Republicans would now be in a position to dictate the agenda in Washington, playing a central role in confirming the president's cabinet and any Supreme Court nominees. Republicans also won several races that could allow them to expand their current majority in the House, though the final outcome may not be known for days. The battle for the House is the Democrats' final chance to retain influence in Washington and resist a second Trump administration.
So tonight, nothing changed.
U.S. stock futures and the dollar surged after Donald Trump was elected the 47th president of the United States. Treasury yields also rose while Bitcoin climbed above $75,000 US for the first time before retreating to around $74,300 US. Trump has previously pledged to make the U.S. the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency capital of the world. The dollar has soared by about 1.5% against a range of currencies, including the ringgit, Singapore dollar, pound, euro, and Japanese yen. Major U.S. stock indexes are also expected to open sharply higher, following gains of more than 1% in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P 500, and Nasdaq. In Asia, markets in Hong Kong and China dropped as exporters' shares declined. Trump has promised voters he will impose tariffs of 60% or more on goods from China. Analysts view Trump's agenda of tax cuts and deregulation could provide a tangible boost to corporate America. However, steep tariffs and the possibility of a global trade war under his presidency could add uncertainty and renew inflationary pressures, further strengthening the dollar. A host of world leaders congratulated Trump for his return to the White House, calling his win a remarkable political comeback. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim highlights the U.S. as Malaysia's top foreign investor and hopes for a stronger U.S. engagement with Southeast Asia as Malaysia assumes the ASEAN chairmanship next year. Meanwhile, France President Emmanuel Macron and Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer expressed readiness to work together closely with the incoming president. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a Trump presidency will bring a fresh start for U.S.-Israel relations, while Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky voiced hope for a stronger strategic partnership with the U.S. As for China-U.S. relations under Trump, China Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said it will be based on mutual respect, peaceful coexistence and cooperation. What does a Trump victory mean for the conflict in the Middle East, particularly the Israel-Hamas war? Director and CEO of Chatham House think tank Bronwyn Maddox weighs in.
Trump could make this better, or he could make it an awful lot worse. He could make it worse by siding with those in Netanyahu's cabinet who say, essentially, let's look to annex the West Bank, let's look to control Gaza, let's see if we can push the Palestinians out. Trump could, though, be tempted, what to me is a more positive direction, of building on the Abraham Accords with the Emirates and other countries in his first term and saying, look, the big prize for the region and for Israel, and for me, is a deal with Saudi Arabia, the normalization of relations. Saudi wants an awful lot of things from that in its relations with the US, and offering really great prizes to Israel in terms of relations with other Arab countries, but also other Muslim countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, if you can come to some deal, which in the Saudi Arabian point of view must include now a state for the Palestinians. If he could put his weight towards that, that would be a positive route out of what is a worsening situation there.
We'll go for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Protests have erupted in Israel after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu fired the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant. Netanyahu says his trust in Gallant had eroded in recent months. Though both are members of the right-wing Likud party, both have clashed for months over the direction of Israel's 13-month-long war in Gaza.
Protesters across Israel are calling for Netanyahu's resignation. They also demand that the incoming defense minister, Israel Katz, to prioritize a hostage deal to return the captives still held in Gaza. Gallant said that his dismissal stemmed from disagreements on three key issues, including his belief that Israel could secure the remaining hostages if it makes painful concessions that the country can bear. He has also voiced frustration over the continued exemption of ultra-Orthodox citizens from military service. Months before the Gaza war began in October 2023, Netanyahu had fired Gallant over political differences before reinstating him following major public outcry.
In other news, Apple is said to be the first company fined under the new EU Digital Markets Act, which came into force earlier this year. According to Reuters, the EU charged Apple in June for violating the new rule aimed at reining in the power of big tech. Apple was found to have failed to allow app developers to steer users to cheaper deals and offers outside of the App Store. These violations under the Digital Markets Act could result in a fine of up to 10% of the company's global annual turnover. The act targets monopolistic practices in big tech, imposing stricter rules to foster fair competition. This new penalty follows a recent $2 billion fine from the European Commission against Apple for restricting competition from music streaming rivals like Spotify on the App Store. Bank Negara kept the overnight policy rate OPR unchanged at 3% as widely expected. The central bank says that this level supports Malaysia's economy and aligns with its assessment of inflation and growth prospects. It said Malaysia's economy remains strong with robust domestic spending and higher exports, particularly in tech and non-electronic sector. The 2025 budget is expected to further boost growth. though risks from lower external demand and commodity production remain. B&M cautioned that the growth outlook faces downside risks, including escalating geopolitical tensions, greater global market volatility, and slowing growth in major economies. Inflation is modest at 1.8% year to date and is expected to remain manageable through 2025. The Public Accounts Committee will summon former Finance Ministers Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz and Lim Guan Eng in its inquiry into the recovery of 1MDB assets. PAC Chairman Datuk Mas Ermiyati Samsudin says they will be called to testify about the Pakatan Harapan and Perikatan Nasional government's efforts to recover 1MDB assets from 2018 to 2021.
PAC Chairman Datuk Mas Ermiyati Samsudin said Treasury Secretary General Datuk Johan Mahmud Merican and 1MDB Asset Recovery Task Force Chairman Datuk Sri Johari Abdul Ghani have already provided statements to the committee. To complete the proceedings, Tengku Zafrul, who is currently the Investment, Trade and Industry Minister, and his predecessor Guan Eng will be summoned. The PAC launched its inquiry after the Auditor General's report raised issues concerning 1MDB's financial commitments. The report revealed that between 2019 and 2023, the government provided 39.74 billion ringgit in grants to 1MDB for principal repayments and bond interest, with an additional 9.46 billion ringgit still required.
That wraps up AWANI Tonight. We'll be bringing more updates on the U.S. presidential election. Stay tuned for our special coverage next on Consider This. I'm Fanashe. Thank you for watching.